So for some reason,
Oh no.
for some reason, when we were contemplating doing this, you had me write down Plymouth Volaré Dodge Aspen
Um, I thought that was because your buddy was looking at that one.
on the low
And
miles or no miles auction.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that's how we started. And so that was a great example of a beautiful example of a car, and it went for just over 20 grand. So a beautiful example of a car that I feel like I would get home and, well, A, probably be served divorce papers, but B, kind of wonder, is that, you know, is that nostalgia at its worst?
I think so. No, and I can, so the two things that pop into my mind for that. So Dodge Aspen, Plymouth Volare, I have a little bit of history with those. Um, Way back in the day, my uncle bought two of them used from somewhere because they needed a couple of knockaround cars for the family. My aunt and uncle have four kids. Most of them were probably driving at this point. And a couple beige on beige, they were either Valaris or Aspens, I don't remember which, showed up. And I remember thinking it was weird that there were two of them and they were identical.
That's like G-Man spec.
Kinda, except they were wagons, right? And the
Oh,
weird part was they were wagons. So they showed up. And what I remember, the only thing I remember about them is one of them, the catalytic converter sitting there got hot enough, and I don't know how or why, that it caused a fire on the interior that burned itself out. And it was concentrated under the driver's seat. And somehow it burned itself out, didn't take out the car, didn't take out any of the wiring somehow. But that car eventually had a burgundy front bench seat or red or some rando color. And like my uncle cleaned it up, probably my cousin did too. And that car went on its merry way. They weren't around for a long time, but they were around. My second Dodge Aspen interaction is my buddy in high school, Dave. He had one. Now, Dave's family were interesting because they actually had interesting cars for the time,
yeah.
right? So they had, God, this would have been an 86 Pontiac Grand Am SE. The sort of dark metallic blue with
Okay.
the matching wheels and the body kit and the console shifter, the full gauges. And it was one of the ones with it was one of the last ones with the vertical front end. It didn't have the slope front end. So
Did it have the directional, non-directional wheels?
I think so. Yeah,
Basically, depending on which side of the car you were on, because every wheel was identical, but they look
yeah,
like they should be directional.
yeah. It had
We
those,
we
and they
had
were
a
body
version of
colored.
those.
And they were body colored. They were body
Oh,
colored.
sweet.
I mean, this was a fully loaded one of those.
Yeah.
The other car they had, and I think it was a four bucket car, not an earlier one. They had a Bandit Trans Am, full Bandit package, black on tan.
Did his dad have a mustache?
No,
Damn.
no. His dad was like this kind of regular guy dad. Like he was just a regular guy. Mom was a regular mom.
Yeah.
And sister was a regular like they were all just people that had these cars. So they had this Trans Am, and because it was a daily driver in Connecticut from new, it was freaking terrible, right?
Yeah.
It was rusty and like the paint wasn't great, the interior was whatever. Um, so they had that, or they had those two cars, and somehow Dave got this gold Aspen wagon, slant six, 3-speed automatic,
Yeah.
plastic interior, dog dish hubcaps. And it wasn't a good car, but this car would take a phenomenal amount of abuse. I mean,
Mm.
I am not exaggerating when I say, because Dave got his license before I did. He would drive me to high school, which was very, very nice of him. We would jump that car 3 times a day, every day of the week. There was a road, we'll have to look it up. I always forget the name of it now. I don't think it was Whitney, maybe it was Whitney Avenue, that went from one side of Trumbull, Connecticut to the other,
Yeah,
our side where we lived to where the high school was. And we went down this curvy road, and at the end of it, well, not the end, but at the end of the little curvy downhill bit, there was a drop off that went over a bridge and then was sort of a long straightaway up the hill.
yeah.
And we would come flying down that at 50 miles an hour, off it in the morning, land, go to school. On the way back, you could get the front end off the ground coming the other way, but you had to time it right because as soon as you did, you had to pitch it in for the uphill left.
Oh, shit.
And the car wouldn't go fast enough to not make that right.
Sure, sure.
And more often than not, we would turn around and do it again. And I remember there was one time, for whatever reason, Dave and I went garbage can hunting in it. And something happened, you know, correlation without causation, not sure. I think it was the right front brake started hanging up. And in hindsight, it was probably just a shitty brake line or a sticky caliper, but we thought it was because we went garbage can hunting in it. So Dave's dad took it into some shop to have it looked at. And the, the mechanic looked at Dave's dad and said, "You're going to put money into this car? You shouldn't do that." And that's when the Aspen went away. Rest of the story is Dave got a two-tone black and silver Chevette five-door hatchback to replace it. And again, this is a family that had a Grand Am SE, which, in 89, 90 was a respectable car,
Yeah.
and a Bandit Trans Am. And Dave got a five-door Chevette. And the only thing I will say about the five-door Chevette is it did not fly nearly as well as the Aspen.
It's sort of funny because I had a friend in high school, and I don't know if he ever drove. They had a Volare, and I remember it was burgundy, and he was the only one. Like he had an older brother. I think maybe his brother used to pick him up at school, but he didn't go to the same school. Or maybe he was that much older. I don't remember. But they had a burgundy Volare. But then when Joe started driving, I don't think he ever drove the Volare. He had he had a oh God, what's the name of the model? Cadillac Cimarron. And wait, it gets
Speaking of
better.
gay cars.
So he has the Cadillac Cimarron, and he drove that for a while. And we all went to this was the 80s, folks. We all went to a keg party somewhere. And he left the keg party when he shouldn't have, and he flipped it,
Wow.
going about 4 miles an hour. And to this day, did you just slowly drive up an embankment and decide to keep going? I never really understood what happened there. So then they bought another one, Cimarron. So he went from the quad headlight version to the composite headlight version
Yeah. Okay.
Cimarron.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to the second Cimarron, but fast forward another year or something, and he was in a burgundy over silver Grand Am.
Yep.
And that one I think saw him through the rest of high school. But I always laugh. I mean, in hindsight, and nobody got hurt or anything. But how do you flip a car going that slow? And of course, you total it because you dent the roof and stuff
Yeah. I
gets
mean,
mangled and what have you. But it was like this low speed, like really?
I
That
mean,
was a guy. He lived in Norwalk, and he lived. So one night a bunch of us were out in the silver station wagon. And he lived not far from where your old house was in Norwalk, sort of that part of town. And I forget the name of the road, but there was a big long road that came down and intersected with a main drag. It wasn't Route 7. I can't remember what the main drag was. But I'm driving the silver Pontiac wagon, and all of us, there's six of us, give or take, in the car, and not paying attention like any good 16-year-old. And I come flying down this hill in the rain, and all of a sudden we're at the end of the road. I cut the wheel, I slammed on the brakes, and I closed my eyes.
That's always the best course of action.
When you're
It,
16, and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The closing the eyes is key.
yeah, yeah. And when we came to, cars intact, actually managed to somehow get it to where it just so we we hit the main drag, and I managed to turn it right, and it was right, like basically on the shoulder on this main drag, on the right, on the correct side of the road, and just barely dinged the right corner of the front bumper of the car. I mean, this is, guardian angel shit. This is,
Right,
or whatever,
right, right.
insert your overseer of choice. But I was not in control, and something kept me from, I don't know, going across into whatever ravine was on the other side,
Right.
or into a semi, or whatever. So that night I get home, and I sort of look at, there's like this little nick, almost like a little hole, because, plastic front bumper. I, I don't want to explain this. Next morning, my mother's backing out of the garage and whacks that front corner of the car on the garage door.
Love that.
My mother, God rest her soul,
Jesus, Mom, that looks like crap.
right? Yeah, what'd you do? Damn.
Gee, so glad I didn't do that.
And those had like these ribbed bumpers, and so like there was just this white stripe down the ribbed bumper. It's like, yeah, like I'm free and clear.
Yeah, 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 that's
Uh,
weird.
I think that's probably the only time I was ever in anything approximating a car accident, that where I walked away free and clear. Because I was usually better at having a car accident than that. I could properly mess up a car.
Yeah, because you totaled the 124 with the Pontiac wagon, I think.
They fixed it.
Well, they shouldn't have.
Well, yeah. So when I rear-ended the 300E, who subsequently hit the pickup truck in front of him and made his brand new 300E look like an old Saab, because both ends sort of went like that.
Mm,
They ended up at the same body shop we did, and ours, just as my sister always described it, looked like an old man with no teeth,
mm.
because it just wiped out the whole front end. But I drove it home because my father told me to. Um, and it, went, the hood's buckled, all this. I'm driving it home, no headlights, whatever. But it was daytime, because why shouldn't you have an accident on a clear day in the daytime?
Right, right.
Um, but the Mercedes did not fare so well. Ended up at the same body shop, and that was the second time I'd been to that body shop. The first time was not my fault. That was the guy that drove across traffic into the front fender of my car. Not my fault. This was my fault. I mean, and it's funny, I never got a ticket for it. I mean, statute of limitations is up now, but never really understood why they didn't give me a failure to control your vehicle or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, no harm, no foul. Um, Same body shop, and I'm talking to the guy who now I know because I'm a regular. Um, he's like, I said, is that car totaled? He goes, nope. He goes, it's borderline. And it was something like $32,000 damage, but they did not write off the car
Because it was a $50,000 car,
at the
probably
time, right?
at
Yeah.
the time, or 45.
And I mean, how pissed would you be that that happens to your, I mean, it was a very new car, and the kid and his sister were out driving in it. I mean, in fact, a few months later, we ended up at the same keg party together. Um, that was weird. But anyway, yeah, like they repaired that car, and it was never right again. Like there was no way.
No, no, no. That, yeah. And the funny thing is, that car is probably still running around Connecticut somewhere because Connecticut.
Could be, could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's
then
funny
you
your dad made you drive it home because when I totaled the Audi, which
he
wasn't
broke the
totaled
crankshaft.
but should have been, um, but for yeah, my father remembers the first thing he asked me being, "Are you okay?" The first thing I remember him asking me is, "Does the car run?" And the answer was very much no. No, I slid that car off the road. At least when I had my accident, it was a wet, snowy winter day. So at least I had an excuse. And I remember starting to slide off the road on a corner and thinking to myself, don't hit the telephone pole. Now, what I didn't think to myself is, why don't you aim back to stay on the road? No, I aimed to whatever was on the right of the telephone pole. And that was a concrete and stone wall. More specifically, the corner of the concrete and stone wall, which broke the bumper in half, broke the grill in half, broke the rings in half, smacked the engine right in the face, and sent the whole thing back and down as it was designed to do. So when my father said, "Does the car run?" I said, "Well, I don't think so." And when I said to him, "I don't think so," in my mind, I know it doesn't because I tried it and it didn't run. It didn't run, it didn't move. Now, similarly, I did not get a ticket that day. Um, for
Well, you were also the only person involved.
true. Although funny enough, I knew the kid, I didn't know he lived there, but I knew the kid from high school whose wall I hit. So, this was in the days before cell phones. So
Oh
I
yeah,
went up and knocked on the door and said, "Hi, you know,
they
I,
hit your wall.
I just hit your wall." And I was like, "Oh, hey, you're so and so." He goes, "Yeah, you're so and so." Yeah, okay. He was a couple years younger or older, but I recognized him. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." So I slid off the road and hit your wall. He goes, "Yeah, that's why we put the wall up. We got tired of people winding up in the front yard." I'm like, "Yeah, all right, well, job done." So the rest of that story briefly is the car gets hauled off to Family Auto Body in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and they put the whole thing back together, and it looks beautiful. And they got in and they turned the key, and the starter went up in smoke. If you hit an Audi five-cylinder in the nose with a concrete and stone wall, there is a non-zero chance you're going to bend the crankshaft. Did you know that at that time, 89, 90, Audi did not normally stock five-cylinder crankshafts in North America, probably because nobody ever damaged one. So the car that wasn't totaled probably should have been totaled because I'm pretty sure, again, that was a $22,000 car new. 6, 7 years later, those cars had no resale value because of the CBS unintended acceleration nonsense. So that car was probably worth 10 grand. I did
And
what was originally 8,000, but subsequently $12,000 worth of damage, maybe 13 to a $10,000 car. Yeah, yeah, that was impressive.
I mean, after they put it back together, it worked.
Yeah, no, it wasn't bad.
I mean, he drove it for another few years,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
4 or 5.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Can you imagine being the tech at Audi? Like you're used to all the normal fuckery. Speaking of fuckery, in that car, fuckery was factory.
Absolutely.
But only due to bad engineering. Um, Can you imagine being the tech who's used to, repairing trip computers and AC systems and that horrible, hydro boost system those cars had and oil leaks and every other dumb thing, automatic transmissions, which were trash. And all of a sudden somebody brings it, we don't know why this car doesn't run. And you're the guy who finds out the crankshaft is bent. I'd be pretty proud of that, actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's like a badge of honor.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Right.
that'd be a good bad day or a bad good day. Not sure which.
Uh, See, you never know where these conversations, which rabbit holes they're going to fall down.
Hmm.
I'm still hung up. It's interesting to me that your uncle did the matching cars thing because my uncle did that, and they also had 4 kids, and they bought matching Saabs, Saab 99s.
Mine did too. Go ahead.
No, I mean that was really it. It was just interesting, like I got all these kids, they're driving, like just go find the car you want, and just give me 2 of them.
My uncle did that with Saab 900s.
Okay. Yeah.
87,
Well, yeah,
88.
his kids were a little younger than my cousins, I think, on the whole.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He did the same thing. He went into Saab of Westport and bought two 900Ss. I think they were S's. They might have been base 900s. Both sticks. One one is white, and I say is, not was. One is white, and the other, I don't remember if it was beige. But the beige one of them went to my aunt and one of them went to be used in my cousins. And I say is because one of my cousins still has that car in deep slumber in her garage. And when I was out there a few years ago, I noticed it was still out there. And I said, yeah, like, what are you doing with that?
yeah,
And she goes, well, it's sitting here because, my mechanic said it's hard to get parts for these sometimes. And, she got a new Mazda SUV and blah blah blah.
yeah,
And yeah, my aunt drove the otr one, and I think it got too rusty, and
yeah.
she wound up in a Forester. But one of those Saabs still exists, almost
Funny.
40 freaking years later. Would I love to have it? Yes, I would.
Yeah, you would. Stick?
Yep,
Yeah,
5 speeds.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the Saab 99s lasted that long with my aunt and uncle, and it might have just been because one of my cousins liked to tinker. But they did have the two Saabs, and then subsequently got rid of one of them, and then I think that was about the time they got the Dodge Colt wagon, and they had the Volvo wagon, the '74 Volvo wagon that the tree fell on, and my cousin got in the back seat and pushed the roof back up with his feet because it didn't cave in the doors. It just, it was just like in the middle of the top of the car. So, but it was never right again. It was always like this sort of divot in the roof. But I mean, that car, by the time they got rid of it, they got rid of it sort of like, give or take 1986. And it had been to hell and back.
Hmm.
It was rusty. It had a tree fall on it. It was running on three cylinders, but that car kept going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's it's kind of funny though. It's like, yeah, my folks didn't have the, oh, we're just going to buy two cars. I mean, and admittedly, we were more spaced out as children, so no, none of us were at home and driving at the same time. Um, but we all had very different experiences. It's almost like the Ferris Bueller thing in our house. My sister got, I don't know, a stereo, and I got a hand-me-down car. And she didn't have a car in college until halfway through her senior year. And I had a car all the way through college. Not necessarily a good car at any given time, but I mean, they got me where I needed to go, and except when they didn't. Yeah, that was the alpha slash quantum slash prelude years. Once we got in the prelude, all was good. But
Yeah. Yeah.
before that, it was a little hit or miss.
I feel like the quantum always worked except for that one time when you lost, was
The
it a
cotter pin,
cotter pin or the little key, the
the
cotter
key. Yeah, yeah. Not
for
cotter
for
pin. Yeah.
for the crank pulley.
Yep, yep. When I did my own um, timing belt on that car, and the car was laid up in my parents' garage for like 3 months, and I went back to college and like my mother's car or something. I don't remember how exactly I pulled that off, but because there wasn't a spare car at that, I don't know what I did. Anyway, all I know is my car was in the garage, and I had one of my parents' cars back at school. I think just for a few weeks. I think it might have been like between Christmas and Thanksgiving and Christmas or something. But yeah, then I lost the little key that held the crankshaft and or crank, the belt
The
pulley,
pulley.
um, and never did find it. Well, until it had fallen down and ended up chewing up the front main seal.
Hmm.
And so I get back to college, drive it for a while. All of a sudden, this thing is gushing oil like the Exxon Valdez,
Hmm.
and and then it's like my father's just like, just find a Volkswagen mechanic and have it fixed. Like stop dicking around with this car. I don't care what it costs. Just like just have it
Enough,
dealt with.
enough already.
Yeah, kind of. Much to his chagrin, because I mean, our cars. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know about your parents, but I look back on when I was driving age at home, our cars never ever went to any shop. Like I can think of like literally one hand. I when the catalytic got plugged on the first 6,000, that went to the shop. Oil changes, brakes, everything we did at home. The Alpha went to the shop because I broke it because
Mhm.
I twisted the drain plug for the radiator right off, and my father didn't have time to put a radiator in and didn't trust me to do it.
Hmm.
So that went to a shop then, and I guess to have an exhaust installed. Um, the the Mercedes only went to the shop because my father was out of town and my mother didn't want a deal. I mean, literally, like I just a handful of times. I feel like in my world, like shit, some car's always in the freaking shop. And my father was probably better at saying, "Yeah, I'm just doing that at home,"
Right.
and a little probably a little bit more, willing to take the risk, but also things were easier to work on.
Well,
Certainly
and
the late
also
model
engineer
stuff.
versus communications major, right? Like our fathers were engineers,
Yeah.
and they had that mind, whereas, we can have that mind, but it's not hardwired.
We grew up with around that mind, and yeah, I can wrench and sometimes I like to, but
Yep.
at the same time, like what our fathers never seemed to, I don't know, give much credence to is time has value.
Um,
I mean,
true,
yeah.
true. Yeah, I don't remember our cars going to the shop a lot, but I also don't remember our cars needing a lot.
Well, but that's, I think, part of what I'm talking about. It's not only we did our own work, but they didn't seem to need as much work. No, we didn't have, 20-year-old cars.
30, 40-year-old cars, right? I
Yeah.
mean, even the Datsun 510 that we had forever, that was a simple car,
Yeah.
right? So, if you can adjust a carburetor, you can adjust a Datsun carburetor.
Right.
You know, plugs, wires, cap, rotor. I mean, all that stuff's easy. Oil changes are easy. Um,
Yeah, you didn't have your Bosch K-Jet injection shitting itself.
no, no, the Sentra, we bought that new in '86, you know, and the way my mom drove it and how far she drove it, that car just never needed things. Like
Yeah.
I remember doing oil changes on it. I don't ever remember doing brakes on it. Later on, when they had to get it through emissions tests after either I was in college or had moved to California, I remember a few times seeing receipts like, oh, they took it in, it didn't pass smog. They put an O2 sensor in it, right? Like stuff like that. The Audi went to the shop when it needed to.
Mm.
But I don't ever remember working on the Audi. I don't
Yeah.
remember oil changes. I feel like by that point, my dad was happy to contend with, the Japanese cars, but I think he had no interest in fixing the AC system on the Audi.
Yeah. I mean, even when they got the first Lexus, which my folks got in 94, oil changes, brakes, stuff like that, my dad would do. Yeah, he wasn't going to do AC and anything beyond that stuff. But he still did all of his, I mean, until he died, he did his own oil changes religiously. That car and the subsequent LS 430 and the Tundra, those all went to the shop. I think the only thing they ever went for was timing belts.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think he could have done it, but that was going to require a different book and a longer amount of time. And he had other, retirement hobbies that he preferred to tearing down the front end of a Toyota V8.
Yeah.
But other than that, and even after he passed away, I took the Tundra in, that was a 2004 Tundra. So it had the 4.6, I guess, had a timing belt, but it also had a recall on the chassis for the rust, where
Mhm.
they brought them all in, and if they weren't rusty, they coated them with some super duper. coating, and I took it in once for that, but I swear that's the only time that thing ever went, in for any sort of repair.
Yeah. I think by the time, even once the Audi was out of warranty, and then, in 95, when Dad got the Q45, I think he was kind of done working on the daily drivers. The Z3 went into the dealer and then went into an independent shop. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the only time my dad ever worked on that car is when Mom knocked the passenger door mirror off on the garage jam. Um, I remember him talking about like finding a mirror in that color and bought it on eBay and installed it. But I don't like Mom just took that car into
It's like I did for my mom's LS 430, and it was like your mirror where it was just slightly the wrong color.
that's the mirror on the five. The mirror on the five is the wrong color because the eBay guy sent me the wrong one.
Right. No,
And
that
the
was not your fault. I
guy
remember that.
sent the right one to the wrong guy. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
And never did recover. I remember he just basically said, "Meh."
He goes, do you want a refund? I'm like, sure, send me money back.
Yeah.
So, but still like, really? Anyway, the Z3 one matches at least. But I remember my mom taking that into the place down in, it was like on the traffic circle in Fairfield. It was like Fairfield Auto Sport or something.
Mm,
I think they're still there, no sponsorship, but I think that's where it went for pretty much everything once it was out of the CPO warranty.
yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
again, I think by that point my dad was just sort of over it. He would tinker with the Datsun, the Roadster that we still had, but by and large he was kind of over it. And I got to tell you, we drive these old cars now. Again, very fortunate that we're sort of at the point where if we want to work on them, we can work on them, and if we don't, we can take them in.
yeah.
Because time is not free anymore in
Well,
any
time is
way.
not free, and some of these things, even some of the 40-year-old cars. I mean, A, finding the right parts can be a challenge, especially, on a 126 Mercedes. Fuel injection parts, are scarce and or dear,
Mhm.
So I don't want to just throw parts at a problem. I'd rather it got diagnosed and the right thing got fixed,
Right.
assuming that the parts are available. And I don't have all the diagnostic know-how, and yeah, I can watch videos and what have you, but at the end of the day, you're still sort of throwing darts at a dartboard unless you really know what you're doing. I've got a guy on, two guys up for the Mercedes cars that know what they're doing. And the other thing, yeah, I mean, yeah, time is valuable and shit. Every day I've got a little bit of less of it in front of me. So, do I want to spend my weekends under a car in the garage? You know, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do, there are some things I want to do on the M5. I want to swap the shifters back. Put the factory shifter back in place of that ridiculous short shift. I watched a video. It's not rocket science. I just need to get out and do it and make sure I've got all the right bushings.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
it's fiddly for where it is, but you can get up in there.
oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, honestly, watching the video, I'm like, oh, all right, yeah,
Mhm.
that's pretty cut and dry. But yeah, some of it, I mean, brakes, I don't mind doing brakes. As long as it's a car that it's easy to get the rotors off of.
Yeah.
Some cars can be a little challenging depending on how they're mounted and what have you. I like doing that. Oil changes, sure. I don't mind doing an oil change. And in fact, with the lift in my garage, it's actually kind of fun. That's like when I had that manual Jag doing the transmission fluid swap. I think it's the ever or, flush. I think it's the first time I ever did that
Mhm.
because I didn't really have a good way. Cars on ramps. Well, by the time you get to the transmission, it's about this far off the ground.
Well, yeah, it's better if it's level.
Well, that too. And so that's not something I'd ever really done until I had, the ability to get underneath, and I got one of those, drain things on the expanding, extending tube. So it's, oh, okay, like it's almost like playing guitar. You're a much better guitar player when you have a good guitar.
Right.
I'm a much better mechanic when I have the right tools,
Mhm.
but I'm still not a great mechanic, and I know it. I'm impatient and I'm ham-fisted. And so At any time I remove or insert spark plugs into any car, out of any car, I think back on that first Alpha Spider where I cross-threaded the spark plug and it never ever did sit right again. Ran fine, but every time you took it was the back one, and
Hmm.
I always remember every time I took a spark plug out of that car, put a spark plug in, it's like, oh yeah, that one's just not quite right.